Marcus Chen didn't recognize his daughter's voice. It should have terrified him, this absence where recognition belonged, this void where a father's love should have sparked immediate and certain. But terror requires memory, requires knowing what you've lost. And Marcus had forgotten even that. "Dad?" the child said again through the phone, her voice small and breaking. "It's me, it's Sophie." He stood in his expensive apartment, surrounded by leather furniture and abstract art that meant nothing, $100 bills scattered across every surface like autumn leaves. His hands trembled as he gripped the phone, searching desperately through the fog in his mind for some connection to this stranger's pain. "I'm sorry," he whispered, though he couldn't remember what he was apologizing for. The words felt important anyway. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the silent phone for a long time, that inexplicable anguish growing in his chest, the feeling of having lost something precious without being able to name what it was. Like hunger without knowing the taste of food, like grief without a face to mourn. On the coffee table before him sat a leather wallet, brown and old-fashioned, innocent as any object could be, except it wasn't. 3 months ago, Marcus Chen had been a different man. Struggling, yes. Exhausted, certainly. But whole. He'd known his daughter's laugh, remembered his wedding day, could taste his grandmother's cooking in his mind. 3 months ago, he'd found a wallet in the rain. 3 months ago, he'd made a bargain without reading the terms. Now, as he opened that wallet once more and reached for another $100 bill, because he always reached for another, couldn't seem to stop himself. Marcus caught his reflection in the darkened window. A stranger stared back, someone wearing his face but emptied of everything that had made him human. The bill felt crisp between his fingers. Real. Valuable. Somewhere in the hollows of his fragmenting mind, a voice whispered that he was paying far too much. But Marcus had forgotten how to listen. This is the story of how he remembered. 3 months earlier, the rain fell in sheets across Seattle that March evening, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon. Marcus Chen ran beneath his cheap umbrella, dodging puddles and other pedestrians, late again for his second shift. He'd always been running, towards something, away from something. He could never quite tell which. At 34, his life had become a blur of spreadsheets and steering wheels, accounting by day and ride-sharing by night. The divorce had been civilized, if such a thing existed. Amanda had taken Sophie, their 8-year-old daughter, and Marcus had taken the guilt. A fair trade, he'd thought bitterly, though neither currency spent well in the dark hours before dawn. The wallet caught his eye as he crossed Pike Street. Brown leather, old-fashioned, leaning against a parking meter as if someone had placed it there deliberately. Marcus glanced around the empty street. No one. Just the rain and the distant hum of traffic and the wallet waiting like a patient question. His fingers found it cold and wet. Inside, no ID, no cards, no photographs of someone's family. Just a single $100 bill, crisp and new, folded with mechanical precision in the center compartment. Marcus should have left it, should have turned it into the police station 3 blocks away. But his bank account showed $127.43, and his rent was due in 5 days. And the wallet seemed to whisper that some things were meant to be found. Found, not stolen, he murmured to himself, his grandmother's old saying hollow in his mouth. He pocketed the wallet and kept running through the rain. For 2 days, Marcus left the $100 bill untouched, the wallet sitting on his dresser like an accusation. He'd look at it each morning while knotting his tie, feel the weight of what he'd done, or hadn't done, settle between his shoulder blades. On the 3rd morning, an overdraft fee appeared in his account. Marcus sighed, took the bill, and told himself he'd use it for groceries. Nothing more. That night, preparing for bed, he noticed the wallet still on the dresser. Frowning, Marcus picked it up and opened it. Another $100 bill lay folded in the exact same spot. His heart stuttered. He checked his own wallet. The first bill was still there, nestled among his depleted ones. He looked back at the leather wallet. The new bill waited, patient and impossible. Marcus's hands trembled as he examined it under the lamp. Same texture, different serial number. 2 distinct bills. 2 real bills. Sleep didn't come easily that night. His rational mind built scaffolding around the impossible, searching for explanations in the architecture of logic. Maybe there had been 2 bills all along. Maybe the rain had obscured his vision. Maybe. But the next morning brought a 3rd bill, and the morning after that a 4th. Marcus began keeping records, his accountant's brain demanding order from chaos. Each bill appeared 20 to 40 minutes after he removed the previous one. He tried filming it, but the footage showed only static snow at the moment of materialization, as if reality itself refused to be documented. By the 5th day, he had $2,300 hidden throughout his apartment. He paid his rent in cash, leaving his landlady confused but content. He bought groceries without checking prices. He filled his gas tank without that familiar clench of anxiety, and then he forgot something. It happened while cooking dinner, pasta with sauce, his only reliable dish. Marcus stood at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, and suddenly didn't know why. The spoon felt foreign, the smell unfamiliar. For 3 terrible seconds, he existed in a void where context had been. Then memory rushed back like a tide, and he was cooking again, just cooking Tuesday night. Marcus chalked it up to exhaustion. He hadn't slept well since finding the wallet, his mind spinning with possibilities and half-formed fears. Just stress, just tiredness, but the gaps continued, small but growing. He forgot where he'd parked his car, spent 15 minutes wandering the lot in rising panic. He forgot a client's name mid-meeting, had to call them friend for 40 awkward minutes. He forgot what he'd eaten for breakfast by lunchtime. Small things, insignificant things. He told himself they didn't matter. Within 6 weeks, Marcus's life had transformed into something unrecognizable. He'd paid off every debt, opened a college fund for Sophie, $10,000 deposited in a single afternoon, bought a reliable car to replace his dying Honda. He quit the ride-sharing, quit the desperate freelance scramble. For the first time in years, he chose his clients based on interest rather than necessity. His life, previously a frantic sprint toward survival, had slowed to something almost resembling peace. Marcus rented a bigger apartment, 2 bedrooms, so Sophie would have her own space. He decorated her room with everything she loved: unicorn wallpaper, a castle-shaped bed, shelves groaning with books. He imagined her face when she saw it, imagined finally being the father she deserved. But during her first weekend in the new apartment, something shifted. Sophie sat on the floor, playing with her dolls while Marcus watched from the kitchen doorway, his heart full of something that felt almost like contentment. "Dad," she said without looking up, "remember when you promised to take me to the aquarium?" Marcus frowned. "What aquarium, sweetie?" "The Seattle Aquarium. You promised before you and Mom split up. Remember?" He searched his memory, found only fog. Had he made that promise? Sophie seemed certain, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember the conversation, couldn't remember promising anything. "Of course," he lied, his chest tightening. "How about we go this weekend?" Sophie smiled, but something sad flickered in her eyes. "You always say that, Dad." Those words hit him like a physical blow. Did he always say that? He couldn't remember. And that inability to remember terrified him more than the wallet's impossible magic ever had. That night, after Amanda collected Sophie, Marcus sat in his silent apartment and tried to remember his daughter's milestones. Her first birthday, nothing. Her first day of school, empty. The first time she'd called him Daddy, just an echo without substance, without the living texture that memories should have. His hands shaking, Marcus pulled out the leather wallet and removed the latest $100 bill, and suddenly he remembered. Sophie's second birthday party. He'd worn a ridiculous clown hat, and she'd laughed until she hiccuped. Chocolate cake everywhere. Her laughter filling the house like music, like light, like everything good in the world. The memory was perfect, vivid, real. He set the bill aside and waited. 37 minutes later, a new bill materialized in the wallet's center compartment. Marcus watched it appear through that strange, static blur his camera couldn't capture, and the memory of Sophie's birthday party began to fade. Colors drained away first, then sounds, then feelings, until all that remained was a fact without warmth. Second birthday. There was cake. Marcus understood then, with the clarity of absolute horror. The bills didn't come from nowhere. They were purchased, paid for, and the currency wasn't money. It was memory. Marcus told himself he could stop. He had enough money saved now. He didn't need more. He'd simply stop using the wallet, lock it away, forget it existed. For 4 days, he kept that promise. But his savings weren't as substantial as he'd believed. Taxes loomed. The new apartment cost more. Amanda called about Sophie's orthodontic work, her voice tight with stress. Could he help with half the cost? Marcus looked at his bank balance. He had the money, technically, but using it would bring him dangerously close to his limit again. And if there was an emergency, just a few more times, he whispered, retrieving the wallet from the closet's depths. Just until I have a real cushion. Then I'll stop. But he didn't stop. The wallet became habit, became need, became as essential as breathing. 2 bills a day, sometimes 3. Never more. He set rules, established boundaries, as if that made the theft of his own soul more ethical. The gaps in his mind spread like rot. He forgot his mother's name for 2 hours. When it finally returned, Maria, the word felt foreign on his tongue, a sound he'd learned to pronounce but didn't understand. He forgot where he'd grown up. Los Angeles returned eventually, but not the house, not the street, not the feel of sun on his skin, or the smell of his grandmother's kitchen. Just Los Angeles, as an isolated fact, contextless and cold. He forgot his first kiss, his college graduation, the color of Amanda's wedding dress. Each missing memory left a void he could sense but not name, like hunger without knowing what food tastes like. Marcus began writing everything down, notebooks filled with facts about his life, desperate attempts to anchor memories with words. But written facts weren't memories. They were just data, lifeless on the page. Daughter's name, Sophie Chen, age 8. Favorite color, purple. Favorite food, mac and cheese. He'd read these lines repeatedly, trying to feel the connection that should be there. But it was like reading about a stranger's child. Amanda's phone call came on a rainy Tuesday, 3 months after Marcus found the wallet. They met at a coffee shop near their old shared house, Amanda already seated with 2 steaming cups when he arrived. "Marcus," she said without preamble, "Sophie's worried about you. She says you don't recognize her sometimes." "That's ridiculous," Marcus responded automatically. "I always recognize my own daughter." Amanda's expression, that familiar mix of pity and frustration he remembered, or thought he remembered, made his stomach knot. "Last weekend, when she arrived at your apartment, you asked her name." Amanda's voice stayed gentle but firm. "She's 8, Marcus. She knows when you're joking and when you're not." The floor seemed to dissolve beneath him. I was playing. Just a game. And you forgot about her peanut allergy. Made cookies with peanut butter. She saw them before eating any, thank God, but I didn't forget," Marcus interrupted. But even as he said it, uncertainty crept in. "Sophie was allergic to peanuts? Since when? Always? How could he forget something so vital?" Amanda reached across the table, touching his hand. "I'm worried you're experiencing some kind of neurological issue. Early onset dementia is real, Marcus. You need to see a doctor." "I'm fine," he insisted weakly. "Sophie loves you," Amanda said quietly. "But she's scared. She says it's like you're disappearing a little bit every day." Those words echoed in Marcus's mind during the entire drive home. Disappearing, that was exactly it. He was disappearing, not physically, but essentially, each bill erasing more of who he'd been. That night, he tried to stop. Really tried. Left the wallet closed, the bill inside unremoved. But the apartment pressed in too quiet, his thoughts too loud in the empty spaces of his mind. At 3 a.m., he took the bill. And another, if using the wallet meant eventually forgetting something was wrong. Maybe unconsciousness was preferable to the pain of recognizing his own dissolution. Marcus woke one Saturday morning without knowing how he'd gotten home. The previous 3 days existed as impenetrable fog. $100 bills lay scattered throughout the apartment, on tables, on floors, stuffed in pockets. How many had he removed? No idea. His phone rang. The screen showed Sophie, but the word meant nothing. He answered anyway. "Dad." A child's voice, tentative and hopeful. Marcus looked around his apartment, searching for context. Who was this child calling him Dad? "Hello?" he said carefully. Silence. Then very softly, "You don't remember me, do you?" Something in that small, broken voice pierced the fog in his mind. He didn't know this child, but he knew he didn't want to hurt her. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not knowing what he was apologizing for, but feeling its importance. "I'm so sorry." The call ended. Marcus sat on his couch, phone dead in his hand, an inexplicable anguish growing in his chest. He'd lost something important, but what? His eyes fell on the leather wallet. It seemed to pulse with malevolent life, or perhaps that was his exhausted mind, creating meaning where none existed. He opened it. Inside, tucked in a hidden pocket behind the main compartment, was a folded note he'd never seen before. With trembling fingers, Marcus unfolded it. Elegant, old-fashioned handwriting covered the page. "The wallet offers what everyone desires, wealth without effort, prosperity without work. But there is no free lunch, never has been. The price is always collected. You may not see the bill, but you will pay with the only currency that truly matters, the moments that made you who you are. Use wisely or lose yourself completely. This is the nature of the bargain. You have been warned." Marcus read it 3 times before the words truly penetrated. Warned. But when? Had this note been here from the beginning? Why hadn't he seen it? Or had he seen it and forgotten? Marcus spent that night on the floor of the spare bedroom. No, not spare. Sophie's room. His daughter's room. The name came not as memory, but as deep certainty. Sophie. He had a daughter, surrounded by toys and books he didn't recognize. Marcus wept for the first time in months. Not for specific lost memories, but for the crushing weight of everything he knew should be there and wasn't. He'd traded his daughter for money, sold every precious moment, her first steps, first words, her laughter and tears and hugs, for $100 bills that now covered his apartment like dead leaves. At dawn, Marcus began writing. Not facts this time, but feelings, impressions, fragments of what little remained. Sophie likes funny voices when I read to her. Or she did. Does she still? Need to find out. Amanda smelled like jasmine. Or lavender, a flower. White flowers. She wore them at the wedding. Mom made something with cinnamon on Sundays. Pie, bread. The smell filled the house. Each line was an anchor, a desperate attempt to hold what remained before everything vanished completely. He called Amanda, voice rough with unshed tears. "I need help. I need you to tell me about Sophie. About me. About us. I'm losing everything, and Amanda did." For hours she talked, filling in gaps with stories Marcus received like gifts. Their first meeting, his disastrous proposal, Sophie's birth, the early sleepless years. Each story created scaffolding where memories might, perhaps, rebuild themselves. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his expensive apartment surrounded by luxury that provided no warmth. Staring at the leather wallet like it was a coiled snake, he could continue. Could withdraw bill after bill until he forgot there was anything wrong, until his conscious self disappeared entirely, leaving only an empty shell, rich but hollow. Or he could stop, now, completely. He wouldn't recover what he'd lost. That truth cut like glass. Sophie's early years, his marriage, his own childhood, all consumed by the wallet's greed. Gone forever, but what remained could still be saved. Marcus made his decision. On a rainy Sunday, Marcus drove to a park that Amanda said he used to visit with Sophie. He didn't remember it himself, but wanted to believe it was true. Using a newly purchased shovel, he dug a deep hole beneath an ancient oak. The wallet went into a metal box, locked. Inside the box with the wallet, Marcus placed all the remaining $100 bills, thousands of dollars rendered worthless by the weight of their origin. "I don't know if you're cursed or enchanted or just an anomaly," Marcus said to the box before closing it, "but you won't consume me anymore. You can keep what you've taken, but you won't have anything else." He buried the box and covered the hole with earth and leaves. No ritual, no magic words. Just an exhausted man refusing to lose more of himself for money. When he returned home, his apartment seemed different, smaller somehow, emptier. None of the expensive furniture mattered. Monday morning, Marcus called Amanda again. "I want to start over. Not as we were, I know that's done. But with Sophie, I want to know my daughter again. Slowly, if she'll let me. No lies, no pretending I remember things I don't. Just starting from where we are." "She'll like hearing that," Amanda said after a long pause. "But Marcus, you need professional help too." "I know. I'll do it right." And he did. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. No tumor, no dementia, no medical explanation. The memory tests were strange. Recent facts perfect. Massive voids in personal history, like selective amnesia, the neurologist said, puzzled. But not from physical trauma. Psychological, maybe. Marcus didn't correct them. It was simpler than the truth. His therapist suggested creating new memories to replace the lost ones. You can't recover the past, but you can build a new present. And eventually, that present becomes the past you remember. Simple wisdom, but profound. Starting over with Sophie proved harder than Marcus imagined. She arrived at his apartment shy, almost afraid, like visiting a distant relative she barely knew. "Hi, Sophie," Marcus said, kneeling to her level. "I know I've been strange lately. I'm sorry for that. But I want you to know that even when I don't remember some things, I always love you." Sophie looked at him with serious eyes. "You remember my name now?" The question broke his heart. "Yes, Sophie Chen, my daughter, 8 years old. Smart, funny, and way more patient with your confused dad than he deserves." A small smile appeared. "Do you still do funny voices when you read?" Marcus didn't know if he didn't remember. But he answered, "Want to find out?" They spent that afternoon reading together. Marcus inventing ridiculous voices for each character, making Sophie laugh in a way he recorded in memory with fierce intensity. He was creating a new memory now, one he could keep. Subsequent visits grew easier. Marcus bought a special notebook, purple, Sophie's favorite color according to his notes, and asked her to help him fill it with important things. "What's your favorite food?" "Mac and cheese." "But you already knew that, Dad." "I know. But I want to write it anyway." Slowly, they built a new story together. It didn't replace what was lost, but it was real, it was present. Marcus also changed his financial life. Cancelled the expensive apartment lease, moved back to something modest. Sold the new car, bought a reliable used one. Returned to work differently. Fewer hours, clients he actually wanted to help. Prioritizing time with Sophie over money to impress. At first it felt terrifying. Returning to ordinary life after knowing infinite abundance. But Marcus discovered something surprising. He didn't miss the money as much as he'd feared. What he missed were the memories. And no amount of money could buy those back. 6 months after burying the wallet, Marcus pushed Sophie on a swing in the park. It was an ordinary October day, the sky gray and typical of Seattle, the kind of day that used to seem depressing but now just seemed real. "Higher, Dad," Sophie shouted, laughing. Marcus pushed harder, watching his daughter soar through the air, her hair streaming, her laughter filling the space around them. And he realized he was happy. Not the artificial happiness money bought, but simple happiness built from small, real moments. "Hey, Dad," Sophie said as the swing slowed. "You know I forgive you, right?" Marcus stopped pushing. "Forgive what, sweetheart?" "For forgetting things." "Mom explained you were sick." "But you're getting better." "I can tell." She turned to look at him. "And we make new memories now. So it doesn't matter as much." Marcus had to look away, his eyes burning. When he could speak, his voice was rough. "You're much wiser than any 9-year-old should be." 9.5, she corrected. Smiling. 2 weeks later, on Sophie's actual 10th birthday, Marcus took her to the Seattle Aquarium, the promise he didn't remember making, but fulfilled anyway. They spent the entire day there, watching colorful fish swim in hypnotic circles, touching starfish in the tide pool, learning about octopuses and their remarkable abilities. Marcus took photos, many photos. That night, he printed them and placed them in a new album, writing detailed captions about each moment. Sophie, age 10, meeting her first real eel. She made a funny face when it swam past the glass. This became his new routine, living each moment fully, documenting it, transforming it into something tangible that couldn't be stolen by any cursed wallet. 3 years later, Marcus stood in his modest apartment, preparing dinner for Sophie's visit. She was 13 now, entering that strange phase between child and teenager, all awkward limbs and strong opinions. The apartment was small but comfortable. No expensive furniture, just useful things, and some that held meaning. A framed photo of Sophie at the aquarium, a drawing she'd made at 9 of them both at the park, the purple notebook now filled with their conversations and stories. Marcus wasn't rich. He worked hard, saved where he could, worried about bills like everyone. But he was happy in a way he'd never been when money appeared magically every day. Sometimes there were still gaps. His memory of before finding the wallet remained fragmented, full of voids that would never be filled. He'd made peace with that. He couldn't change the past, but he could ensure the present was worth remembering. Late at night sometimes, Marcus wondered if the wallet was still there, buried beneath the oak in the park. If another person might find it. If someone already had, he hoped not. But if someone did find it, he hoped they'd be wiser than he'd been, that they'd see the warning hidden in the secret pocket before removing the first bill, that they'd understand some bargains, no matter how attractive, cost more than anyone should pay. The doorbell rang. Sophie had arrived. Marcus opened the door, and his daughter entered like a hurricane of teenage energy, talking about school, about friends, about a book she was reading, and Marcus listened to every word, giving complete attention, recording everything not in a notebook, but in his heart. Because memories weren't about having all the answers or remembering every detail perfectly. Memories were about being present, about living each moment completely, about valuing the connections that make us human. The wallet had taught him that in the cruelest way possible. But in the end, perhaps that was the only lesson that truly mattered. Some treasures cannot be bought. Some investments we pay for with more than money. And some losses teach us the true value of what we still have. Marcus Chen had learned these lessons, and every day he chose to live by them. The most valuable currency anyone possesses isn't in their wallet. It's in their memories, in their connections, in the moments lived with those they love. Marcus had almost lost everything before understanding that simple truth, but understanding had come. And with it, the chance to build something real from what remained, not a replacement for what was lost, but something new, something chosen, something earned through presence rather than purchased through absence. Outside, rain began to fall again on Seattle. The same rain that had fallen 3 years ago when a desperate man found an impossible wallet. But Marcus no longer ran through it. He stood at his window, watching his daughter set the table, and smiled. Some races, he'd learned, weren't meant to be won by running faster. They were won by finally stopping, looking around, and recognizing that everything you'd been searching for was already there, waiting to be noticed, valued, and held close.